Welcome again to Advanced Library Research for Counseling students. What we are going to cover tonight is a refresher of database searching. So we're going to do that quickly at the beginning. We covered that more in depth the other evening in the intro to counseling library research. So you can watch that recording on the library website if you haven't already watched that. So we're just going to do a quick review of that content. Then we're going to talk about searching other types of information in the library that we didn't have a chance to talk about in that webinar. So searching background information, theories and methodology, and accessing and searching dissertations. We're also going to talk briefly about Google Scholar, not as in-depth, I'm sure, as some students would like, because that's really a secondary resource that we use here in the library, but we're going to cover that so you know its pros and cons and what it is best used for. Then we're going to wrap up with how to stay organized. So you're looking at all these different resources and types of information. So how do you keep everything organized? So we're going to talk about tools and techniques to do that. And lastly, we are going to talk about where to find help, which is how we wrap up just about every webinar that we do. So let's jump in and start talking about database searching. So at this point in an advanced library research webinar, you all should have been in the library at least at some point in your program area. So as a refresher, I just want to point out there are mainly 2 points of entry to search in the databases for primarily what you'll be searching for, which is peer-reviewed research articles. So we are actually going to hop over to the library and I will show you what those sections are. So you should be seeing the library homepage right now. So please let me know in the questions box if you're not. So the 2 main ways that we search is this top search box at the top of the homepage, and we call that Thoreau. That searches all of the library. And so when I say all of the library, what does that mean? Well, it means that it searches everything here in this research by subject box. When I click on that, you'll see all of these areas that we offer degrees here at Walden. So like a traditional library, our resources are arranged by subject. So if we were to click on counseling, all of our counseling resources are arranged on one page. As we covered in our intro webinar, counseling databases and on our other subject resource pages can be found under this first drop-down menu. So you'll see the top 5 counseling and psychology databases here, and then to view the entire list, you can click on View All Counseling Journal Databases. But as you all should know by this point, PsycInfo is the main go-to database for psychology and counseling, so that is really where you should be spending quite a bit of your time during your coursework. Think of when you are deciding where you want to search in the library, think of having 30 minutes to research your topic. If you were to use Thoreau, that is like going into the library and you have to search every single section. So you can see you're only going to be able to do a superficial search because it's not going to be narrowed to a specific subject. Now, think if you had 30 minutes and you only were searching in counseling, how much more research you'd be able to get done. So there's reasons why we would want to use Thoreau versus a subject-specific database. And we, again, covered that in the intro webinar. And hopefully you're all familiar with what a database is. And all that is simply a collection of an electronic collection of materials that you can search. So instead of going to a bookshelf on the second floor in the north side of the building in the library, you're going to a specific database. So let's jump back over to the PowerPoint and we're going to talk about, well, how would we want to search either Thoreau or those subject-specific databases? Again, this is a refresher. These are pretty much 8 steps that you can use every single time you search. You may spend a little time on one versus the other step, but it essentially boils down to trying a search, reviewing the results, and modifying that search. And that's all encompassed in those 8 steps there. So as a trick, I would recommend maybe printing this slide and keeping it available where you search, or you can save it to your desktop so when you're searching the library databases, you can literally go step by step. So let's do a quick search and refresher on how to search for peer-reviewed research articles. So let's assume our prompt is in our coursework, or possibly even this is maybe related to a master's level or doctoral level research project. Choose a current topic in counseling and discuss its effects on a specific population. What programs are being used to address this issue? Use the scholarly literature to support your response. So the first step in that list of 8 is to make a list of your main ideas. Well, you'll see the 2 main ideas there. We chose the current topic of drug use and the population of high school students. The second, within that first step, is to brainstorm all the synonyms in case researchers or the databases are using terms that are similar but not quite the same as what you're using. So drug use has a synonym would be substance abuse or drug addiction. And high school students over in Europe is often called secondary school or secondary education. And teenagers and adolescents are also kind of more general, but in that area. So how would a search look if we were to do that in the library databases? So I am going to search subject-specific databases because as an advanced researcher, you typically will be in subject databases versus Thoreau because you're digging deeply into a topic, and Thoreau just doesn't really do that as well as our subject-specific databases. So I am going to go ahead and click on counseling, click on counseling databases, and click on PsycInfo. Now, our third step is to enter one idea or concept per search box. And the fourth step is combine similar terms with or in the same search box. So I am going to put drug use or substance abuse or drug addiction in the first search box. I'm going to put high school students in quotation marks so I can search it as an exact phrase in the second search box. I'm going to scroll down and I'm not going to limit to full text because as an advanced researcher, you want to see more of what's out there. So we have full text and we also have citations. Now, if you find an article that we don't have the full text to and you're working on a master's or doctoral research project, you can request that article from us through our document delivery service. And you can use Ask a Librarian to find out more about that if you'd like to do that. So we're going to click on peer reviewed, and we're not going to limit by date at first because that's another advanced research technique because often we want to see older articles, maybe try to find seminal articles or really groundbreaking articles in a topic. So we are going to go ahead and click search. And we have 1,839 results. So remember that in EBSCO databases, right, this is the vendor that licenses us PsycInfo, they search the article title, the publication information, the subjects, which are the main ideas assigned to the article in each individual database, and it also searches the abstract. Now, if we found something relevant, we could go ahead and click on the PDF full text or find it Walden and pick another database to access the full text. So one of the things we do when we experiment with searches is we look at the subject lines and see how else we might want to brainstorm and narrow our search. Because a good, well-structured search has about a couple hundred at the most. So we can see terms like school-based intervention, alcohol abuse. So now we're seeing more specific drug use. Tobacco smoking. Well, prescription drugs are a current topic, so we can go back up continue to modify our search. And if that's the only type of article we want to find, so articles whose main idea is prescription drugs, we already know it's a subject term because we saw it in the subjects line, right? And a few results down. So we can tell the database, find us only articles whose main idea is prescription drugs. So we're going to go ahead and tell it to only bring up articles where prescription drugs is in that subject line. So I'm going to go ahead and click search. And now I'm down to 46 articles. So now we might want to broaden this a little bit. So why don't, instead of high school students, we use some of the other terms on our list. And you'll see, again, this is another advanced search technique, that I used an asterisk at the root word of both teen and adolescence. That is going to show us that is going to search for all the forms of the word teen. So teen, teenager, teenaged, and adolescence, both the person and adolescent and both the state of being, right? Adolescence with a CE. So again, we can click search and update our results. So now we have 744. So we've broadened it a little bit. Now remember, our prompt also wanted us to search for programs, but intervention is also a type of program, or maybe prevention or treatment. Those are kind of likely to bring up articles that have to do with some type of program. And I got this fourth search box by clicking on the plus button. So now I have 489 results. So I can continue modifying that result if I want to, or we can start reviewing them. There's likely not 489 results when we go to the last page. It's likely going to be more around like maybe 200 or 300 because these are including duplicates from all of our databases. So there's likely a lot less than that. So that is kind of a refresher. That is just really quick and brief what we covered in an hour the other evening. So again, that's a great webinar to watch if you want to watch this in a little bit slower motion. But that's kind of a refresher because all of these skills that we use in this database to search for research articles, we are going to be able to apply in our other types of databases that we're going to talk about tonight. So let's hop over to the PowerPoint again, and we are going to start into some new content. So as a review, those are all the various advanced search skills that we just covered really quickly. So quotation marks, using the asterisk, understanding and using subject terms, and field searching is when we searched for prescription drugs only in that subject line. We could have searched for it in the article title or the abstract, and that's called field searching, where we're searching a specific part of the article. Now, this is a handy tool that if you ever have a doctoral research appointment with me, I often share with students because I love this tool that is in our databases, and it's called a Thesaurus. So if you remember from your traditional library days, right, we would go into the library and right next to the dictionary was a thesaurus, and it was simply a book of synonyms and related concepts. Well, the database has that as well, and it is a great brainstorming tool. So I am going to show you how I use that tool. So let's hop over to the databases again, and we are going to start a new search in PsycInfo. So we're going to go to Counseling and PsycInfo. Now I want to search for compassion fatigue and resilience. But I know from a previous counseling class that there's lots of terms for resilience, but I cannot think of any of them right now. And I'm really open to all the related concepts of resilience when I'm searching, because that's a very specific term, but I want to give the database as many options as possible. So we are going to go to the Thesaurus, which is typically at the top of the database, but in ProQuest databases, it might be somewhere slightly different. So just look for a term Thesaurus, and you'll typically find it. I'm actually can't remember exactly right at the moment what it's called in ProQuest. I don't think they call it a thesaurus. So if you click on here, you don't want this first search box because you're just going to search PsycInfo again. You want this box right here that's searching the thesaurus. So I am going to type resilience, and I'm going to do term contains just in case there's a phrase that resilience is in. We don't want term begins with. So we're going to click browse. And you'll see that resilience is the first word that pops up. So I am going to go ahead and click. And you'll see this is what an entry in the thesaurus looks like. So again, a database is simply the same thing as you would find in a traditional library. It's just electronic. So instead of a page in a book, we're seeing this entry. So typically it'll give you a definition. It'll give you broader terms, related terms, and other terms that are probably passé and not used anymore. And you can use any of these terms. Resilience is the best example because you might not have thought about searching cognitive reserve, for instance, or post-traumatic growth, or protective factors. Resilience also used to be called hardiness. So if you're looking in the older literature, hardiness is a great term to use because that's going to bring it up in the older literature as well. So this is the source. You can use it. You can look up compassion fatigue. You can look up any psychological term because the PsycInfo database uses the American Psychological Association list of subject terms. So I am going to go over to the PowerPoint. Now this is kind of the first section. So this was really a refresher. The thesaurus and some of the advanced skills might be a little new. And we went by that pretty fast because again, we've already covered this in another webinar. So is there any questions before we move on? If you have any questions, you can post them in the questions box. All right, great. So let's go on to other types of library resources. I know here at Walden, we emphasize peer review research a lot because we believe in science and we want to make decisions and base our research off of what has been shown to be the case in research studies, right? So we base a lot of that, a lot of the work we do off of peer-reviewed research. But the same people, your instructors, professors, and other academics that write those research articles also contribute to other types of materials. So let's talk about some of those that you may not have explored much since being at Walden. The first is encyclopedias and handbooks. And these aren't your World Book encyclopedias. These are academic encyclopedias that are written for academics by other academics. And the same with our book search. Now, encyclopedias are great, even if you're doing master's level and doctoral level research. You really want to get a grounding in your topic. So if you're researching drug abuse in adolescence, if you could read 100 research articles to get a good grounding in that topic, or you might find a great book chapter or entry in an encyclopedia that's going to give you a really good understanding of your topic. So when you go into the peer-reviewed research, it makes sense, right? Because remember, peer-reviewed research is just a small little slice of that larger topic. So let's look at what this how you might use this in the actual library. These are kind of my two. I am always pleasantly surprised with the information that I can share with students from encyclopedias and books. So we're going to hop back over to the library. We are going to close out the thesaurus. We're going to keep these other searches open because we're going to go back and use them a little bit later. So like when you go into a library, you have to look for signs and read them to kind of navigate your way. So one of the other things to be aware of is this publications button on the right. This is where a lot of our other resources live. And we're going to actually go through these things here on the left-hand side. So the first is at the bottom, Encyclopedias and Handbooks. Our main encyclopedia is called Sage Knowledge. So you can go right in there. And for instance, we want to search maybe drug use because that's what our topic is. Now, Sage works best with just searching one term or concept because think about an encyclopedia, right? It's usually covering something more broadly. So I found the best success, although you can use the advanced search and set it up very similar to our journal databases, but I like to use it in this way. So if I click search, you're going to see a list of both encyclopedias and handbooks. So it will tell you typically a handbook or an encyclopedia. So handbooks are great because they're arranged by chapters, and encyclopedias, like you probably remember, are arranged alphabetically by entry. So let's take a quick look at one of these. Let's actually look at, how about the book, the handbook, The Sociology of Drug Use, or I'm sorry, the handbook, 21st Century Sociology. The chapter is called The Sociology of Drug Use. So let's see what a typical handbook entry looks like. Now, I don't know if you can see on your end over on the right-hand side, my scroll bar is really small. So that means that this chapter is probably about 10 pages long. So let's see what's included in something like this. So this is chapter 42 of this larger volume. So it's going to tell you about the sociology of drug use. It's going to tell you about early research. That's great. So you can get a really good grounding on how drug use, the perception of drug use has changed over time. It gives you early researchers in this area, which is terrific because I'm sure some of the peer-reviewed research is going to mention these people. If we scroll down, implications of early insight of that. And then it also talks about theories. Now, we're going to talk about theories here in a minute. Encyclopedias are a great way to find theories. You can look up a concept like drug use. You can look up drug use theory, and you can look up a specific theory, for instance, learning theory or self-efficacy. You can look up all of those different types of theories, whether it's by concept or a specific theory, and see what's available in our encyclopedias. And you may or may not find something, but it's always a great place to look. So it's talking about theories of social control, theories of social learning. You might not even have thought that social learning had been applied to drug use. So encyclopedias are an excellent, excellent place to look for background information to get grounded in your topic. And although you typically don't cite encyclopedias and often not books either, they can often point you to the original research that you can then go look up and use in your projects and coursework. Okay, so where do we find books? Okay, so again, everything is under publications. Most everything lives there. There's some things that don't. So here you'll see books is a type of publication, right? So you can click here. Now you search books exactly like you do the peer-reviewed research. Now, since we only offer you one search box, always look for an advanced search link because if you have multiple concepts, it's a lot easier to search because remember our list of 8 steps? Number 3 was enter one idea or concept per search box. So it's much easier to do when you have 3 search boxes versus 1. It's just easier to set up. So I click on advanced search, and let's say we want to search sort of the same topic. We want to kind of see what's out there for books. So we're going to search drug use and substance abuse, teens and adolescents, and we want to know a little bit more about prevention. So again, one idea or concept per search box. You never have to change this drop-down menu, and or always goes inside the search box. So we're going to click search. And we have 533 results. Now we can continue to narrow it. Look, you'll notice that the results list is very similar. The book title or chapter title. So you'll have to look at the citation to see if it's a book or chapter. The subjects. So then you can look and say, do I want to search adolescent behavior, drug education, health promotion, all of those types of things. We could also, we see that prevention is a subject term, so we can limit to subject again if we want. And so we'll see substance abuse and counseling, yeah, this is really great. Substance abuse among adolescents, risk prevention and treatment. And so you can do that. You can limit by date, so you can see what we have that's the most current. And like our other databases, we have the option to further limit on the left-hand side on the results page. And you can see date is down here in the middle. So again, books are great places to look. Now, we haven't yet got to theories. We're going to go and talk about that next. But if we want, we could type in theory or theories. And then we can see what books mention theories related to that. So something here with substance abuse and counseling, I don't see theory highlighted here. So I can click on the title and see where that term is coming from. Okay, so it looks like one of the chapters in this book is called Preventing Adolescent Relapse, Concept Theories and Techniques. So again, encyclopedias and books can be immensely powerful in finding that information. Now this is, because it's an academic book, it's going to have an index and citations in the back, possibly footnotes. So it is going to cite where they got their research from, so you can look at some of that original research if you want to. But this would be a great chapter to read to get an overview of what theories have been applied to adolescent drug use. So great tools. Okay, so I know we have a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions about books, handbooks, or encyclopedias. Okay, I'm going to close this out and I will open up the page. I want to keep some of those other searches open so we can play around with them. I do have a question. What are the asterisks for? So remember that the asterisk is to search the root word. So teen has, if we just type teen, it's going to look for the word teen. Now, most databases are going to try to help you, and they're going to try to search for all the variations of teen. But for us to help the database out a little bit, we're going to put an asterisk where the word starts to change. So you can either add an S there, an AGER, an AGE for teen, teenager, teens, all of those. So I would use the asterisk sparingly because sometimes students struggle with using this properly, and it can kind of mess up your search a little bit. So if you don't quite fully understand this, there are more resources in the PowerPoint and you can see more examples in the links. But adolescence is another good example because we could take out the asterisk and type CE or TS for adolescence with a T, like an adolescent child, or adolescence like the state of being, right? So we can put an asterisk there to search. Homeless is another good word, like homeless. If you put the asterisk at the end, it'll search for homeless and homelessness. So you have to use it sparingly. It is just something to kind of keep in mind in your tool bag in case you find a word that has like a lot of variations like that. Okay, So let's talk about theory. Let's move on to theory and methodology. Now, we already talked about theory a little bit, right? So we can look for theory in Sage Knowledge, that's the encyclopedia. We can look at it in books, and we already looked at that. Now, we can also look for it in research articles. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is that most research is based in theory, right? So any article that we find in this search, right? So this was our original search. Any article that we find is going to mention theory. But if we type in theory or theories in the search box, we're more likely to be able to browse the results list and kind of see mentions of different theories without actually having to sort through a lot of articles and read through them thoroughly. So what do I mean by that? So I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do a slightly different search in PsycInfo. Now, very similar to what we've been doing, I just kind of want to make it a little bit, simplify it a little bit. So say we want to do what we did in the book search, right? Drug use, teen or adolescence, and prevention. I'm going to add in a fourth search box by using that plus button, and I'm going to type in theory or theories. Now, again, if we did the search without that, all of those articles are going to mention theory. But this is a neat little trick if you're kind of just first starting to delve into theory. So I am going to keep full checks checked. You could go either way with this one. You may or may not want to read the article. The abstract might be enough to kind of give you a clue as to a theory you might want to investigate. And I'm going to check peer review. I'm not going to check date because date's not so important right now because some theories are still relevant that were sort of originated 30 years ago. So I'm going to click search. Now here's some things to look for. Now I have 407. Now this is what will typically happen. You will often see, you may see, I should say, in the subjects line, the name of the theory that they're talking about. Now here they're just using general theories, right? We'll go back to that. Let's see if I can find one that talks about a specific theory. We may not be lucky in this search. Some searches and databases do this a little bit better. Okay, I don't see anything. It's just really has theories in the subject, if at all. Okay, so this isn't a great example. I should have probably looked at this a little bit closer, but often you'll see names of theories. Our other databases do this a little bit different, a little bit better. But if we go into, let's take this one. It has, so the main idea of this article is about theories. So if we click on the article title, we can look and see where theories is highlighted. Okay, so it's talking, this revised model provides a comprehensive and coherent framework synthesized from theories of drug abuse. So this whole article is going to be talking about different theories. So this would be a good article possibly to look at the whole thing. If we were to, let's look at this article and see what they mention. Sometimes they'll mention the name of the theory right in the abstract. Let's see. Okay, so this one is actually theory in the journal title. So this may or may not be helpful, but I would look in those three places. Like I said, some of the databases do this a little bit better. I want to click on one more because I saw one earlier when I was doing this search that was really interesting. Oh, okay, so here's one. Here's one that talks about the theory of planned behavior. Intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. So these are, maybe you hadn't thought about that. So maybe you want to read more of this article, maybe you want to go back to the encyclopedia and look up planned behavior. Now we can also use databases to look up specific theories. So I can modify my search, and if I want to see articles that have used planned behavior theory, I can simply type in planned behavior theory. Now I'm in PsycInfo, so it's going to bring up psychology literature that uses that. So it has planned behavior here. So that's a subject term. So I can limit to subject if I wanted to, so I'm not at 3,400 articles. So I'm still at 1,700. I probably want to limit it by date or maybe add in some other keywords, because remember, a couple hundred articles is really what, oh, actually, I'm sorry. A better option is to do planned behavior in quotation marks, and probably theory or theories here is probably going to get us our best results. Oh, okay, it didn't. We're back up to 2,100. So we're going to have to, theories is in the subjects. We could possibly limit this to subjects, but now you have at least a goal of getting that down to a couple hundred, because nobody wants to browse that many results. Okay. Okay, so I was looking at questions. I'm going to go back to those here in a little bit. So let's talk about methodology. Because we're still on article searches, I'm going to go and show you how you find methodology in the journal databases. But again, we have a specific database. It's an Encyclopedia and Handbook database specifically devoted to methodology. So let me go back and let's look a little bit about how you find articles by methodology, and look at the database that is specifically about methodology. So our Encyclopedia and Handbook database on methodology. Okay, so let's jump back over to the library. And we have this search, right, originally here. This was our original search. So we have 489 articles. Now, what if I want to see what qualitative studies or what quantitative studies have been used related to this subject? So hopefully you're thinking to yourself, well, how would I do that? Well, really what we can do is simply put in the keyword that we're looking for, right? So we can put in qualitative, we can put in quantitative, or we can put in the methodology that we're looking for, like case study. So we can put in qualitative and we can click search. Now, some databases like PsycInfo actually has a limiter for qualitative. I find that searching for it as a keyword, if you just remember that, you can use it across all databases. I don't think it's here on the, so it has a methodology limiter here on the left. So you could do qualitative study, interview, field study, but searching by keyword is going to get you just about the same results. So if you remember that you can use the keyword, then you can type this in here as well. So I just would recommend doing this. Now, this is going to only bring up articles if it mentioned qualitative in the article title, the publication information, the subjects, or the abstract. So this isn't all the qualitative. This isn't all the qualitative research. But we can also expand it. So what other terms are used for qualitative? Well, case study is something qualitative. Any of these things, narrative or grounded theory, we could search any of those in this. So if I added in case study, it should be it should add more results to that. I am just going to pause for 1 minute because I need to plug in my headsets. They're beeping in my ears, so just hang tight for 1 second. Okay, so I have a pair of wireless headsets, and I'll tell you a little story, is that I love them, but they just started beeping in my ears, and it took me about 3 minutes listening to this while I'm trying to talk to you all, figuring out what is beeping. So it is my wireless headsets about to die on me. So, so pardon my interruption there. Okay, so now we have 24. So you can search this for qualitative, quantitative, you can search for phenomenology, interviewing. If they use a specific quantitative method, you can search for that as well. Now, if you get no results, you might want to take out some of these search terms and broaden your search. Now, there's one more place you can look up information about methodology. So you can actually get to it through publications because it's an encyclopedia database. So if you click on Encyclopedias and Handbooks again, it's right here. It's SAGE research methods. So SAGE knowledge is general information, right? Just in 20 different subject areas. SAGE research methods are a collection of encyclopedias and handbooks for methodology. So I can type in case study. And it's going to take a little while to search. So handbooks, encyclopedias on case studies. So this is when you are looking for more information. Your research methods classes aren't going to cover everything. So you need to be able to look up more information about how to do a case study, how to write up a case study, how to analyze your data. And so you'll see there's all of these books in here about case studies. You can also search much more broadly. You can search quantitative. And we have a lot of books on the social science, doing quantitative research in the social sciences. You can search qualitative. Our qualitative books are really good because it'll show you how to analyze a lot of that data as well. So the SAGE handbooks of mixed methods in social and behavioral sciences. That's for business and management. So yeah, we could search qualitative and social sciences if we wanted to, or qualitative and counseling or psychology. So know that those options are there available to you as well. Okay. So lastly, we are going to look at dissertations. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on this because, again, the same search strategies that we talked about, so those 8 steps, work exactly the same in dissertations. I just want to show you what is available and why you might choose to search one dissertation over another. It's also good to know that you can search dissertations by subject. You can search them by degree, so you can search PhDs. And you can also search by chair or committee member. So if your chair is Dr. Hertic, for instance, you can search and see see the dissertations that she chaired, so you can see the type of work that she has chaired. So again, we find dissertations under that publications button. And you'll see dissertations here. Now, I want to point out, we're not going to go too much into depth, but we have a database of just completed Walden dissertations. Those are good if you want to see sample dissertations related to your topic. So if you look in the last couple of years, you can see what was written on drug use in adolescence. So you can kind of see, what does a literature review look like? What does their research problem, how did they define their gap? How did they write up their research? So that is what this search is. Actually, let me go back really quick. And then ProQuest Dissertations, Theses, and Global searches all universities' dissertations. And that's great to search when you are working on your doctoral research and you want to see if anyone's wrote on your topic or aspects of your topic, because they've already done the research, so you can look at their literature review and glean and citation chain all of their research that they found, because usually their literature review is much more in depth than a typical research article. So if we look at the interface for the Walden dissertations, you'll see that it's very similar. So one idea or concept per search box. So we'll just do a quick search so you can see what the results list looks like. We can do teen and prevention. And then we're going to search. So we have 3,400 results. Now we can limit by date. ProQuest does this thing. Remember when I said in EBSCO that EBSCO searches the article title, pub, synonyms, and abstract? In ProQuest, it searches the article, it searches the whole article text. So we can tell it to search anywhere but the full text, and that makes it search very much like an EBSCO database. So this will probably limit it to just a couple. Okay, so 15 that have all of those terms in the article title, publication information, subjects, and abstract. And then the slide has more information if you want to look up your dissertation, your chair's, the dissertations that your chair has sat on. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and briefly cover Google Scholar and staying organized. I am going to leave some time after 8 if you want to stick around. I know that everybody wants to hang out with their favorite librarian on a Thursday night, but because we're not going to have time to cover everything in depth. So let's talk a little bit about Google Scholar. Now, we're not going to have time to go over everything about Google Scholar. So I want to just point out the pros and cons. And the reason why I leave Google Scholar to the end is A, because I typically run out of time, and B, it really should be a secondary resource for you as master and doctoral level students, or if you are doing a capstone as an undergraduate, you really should be using library databases. Those are the tools of academia. Google Scholar, it has a lot of pros. It searches broadly, so I can search broadly the same topic, but I searched the same topic we were working with tonight and I ended up with 64,000 results. And the first result was a book. So if you look at the cons, you can't limit to peer review. It's anything that's considered academic, books, conference papers, other types of information and reports that may not be peer-reviewed empirical research. So anything that you find in Google Scholar, you have to verify it in another database to make sure that the journal is peer-reviewed. It also doesn't limit to full text. So you can use a pre-configured Google Scholar search on the library. You can link Google Scholar to the Walden Library, and you will see some things that we do have. But you can search so much more comprehensively and systematically in the databases that it's really such a great idea. It really is a great idea to learn those and just and to become proficient in searching library databases. So what is one thing that Google Scholar does really well? It does it better than just about anything. Well, it's called citation chaining. Now, we're going to talk at the end of the webinar about a series that we do called Mysteries of the Library. It's a webinar that we do once a month, and it's on a specific topic, and we spend a half an hour on just that one topic. So I recommend if you're interested in Google Scholar that you watch that webinar, and it is recorded. So I will show you where that recording is, and you can learn everything you want to learn about Google Scholar. If you don't want to take my advice, I'd rather you use at least Google Scholar as proficiently as possible. The one thing that it does do well is called citation chaining. Now, if there's an article that we find that is older, maybe we can't cite it because it's not current, we can enter that article title in Google Scholar. So you can see here we entered the article Promoting Civility in the OR, an Ethical Imperative. You can see since it was published in 2017 that 4 other articles cited it. So not bad, at least someone cited it. So you can look there and see if those 4 articles are relevant, and then you can look and see if we have those available in the Walden Library. So that is something that is used when you're doing really in-depth research, citation chaining. That's kind of one of the last steps, or one of the steps you do kind of far down the line in your process of research. So again, we have a webinar all about Google Scholar that you can take, and so you can learn to use it as proficiently as possible. So that is citation chaining. Now let's talk about staying organized. Again, these are things, and again, I leave them to the end because we have specific webinars on them. And I think some of the information that we covered earlier, you're going to be using much sooner. So this information that we're covering in the end is things I want you to keep in your mind. So when you find yourself really digging deeply into a topic for whatever it is you're working on, you can revisit this PowerPoint and look at some of the information here. So what are the basic things that you want to do? The basic thing, at least from our perspective, is keeping a search log. That tracks your searches when you are doing an in-depth, when you're doing in-depth research for some reason. It could be your capstone, it could be dissertation. So what does a search log look like? Well, we're going to look at one on the next page. But before I do, there is something that the Writing Center uses that's called a literature review matrix. And what that is it tracks articles. But that's more of something for you to use to synthesize your research. So I often leave that to the Writing Center so you can explore that a little bit later. But as far as databases go, this is what a search log looks like. So if we were searching recidivism and reoffending and social support, I could recreate the searches that this student did. On the left, you'll see the database that they used, their search terms, how they limited it. Sometimes they limited it to peer review, sometimes they limited it to peer review and date, the number of results in their notes. So in their notes, they put themes that they're seeing, other keywords, and just observations that they're making in their database results. And you can just create this in Excel. So it's really easy to do. So that's what a search log is, and I'm going to let you explore what a literature review matrix is on your own, because again, that is when you are to the point of synthesizing all the articles that you collected. You want to compare theories and limitations and methodology. That's what a literature review matrix will do for you. Okay, so lastly, so our last topic of the night before we talk briefly about how to get help after, and then like I said, I'll stick around and answer some questions, is citation management software. So what citation management software is it's a piece of software you can use on the cloud or you can download to your computer. You can use both. And you simply download the articles and the citation information that you find. Now, there's a learning curve to this, and it's typically used primarily by our dissertation students because they will be collecting and sorting through hundreds of articles. And so I want you to just be aware of this. If you hadn't heard about this before, you can refer back to this PowerPoint for guides and webinars that we have on this. We have multiple hour webinars on how to choose software, the basics of using Zotero and Mendeley, which are two free pieces of software. So just know that that is available to you, and that's again much more sophisticated, a much more sophisticated research strategy. So any questions briefly before, oh, I forgot we had search alerts. So, search alerts. Okay, let's talk about search alerts. Again, this is a much more advanced search technique. So this is again when you are in a deep research project of some kind and you want to stay notified of any new literature or any older literature that was added to the databases that we didn't have previously. You can set up an email alert to be able to get notified when those things change. So for instance, so when our holdings in the database change. So for instance, with this search, once you're done searching and you start writing your research up, you might want to get notifications on anything new that's been added to the database. So you can create a search alert for this. Now, the instructions on how to do that are in the PowerPoint, so you can explore that further if that's something that you want to do. So yes, I always forget about search alerts at the very, very end. Okay, so let's talk about where to get help. We have just a couple of minutes left. So there's a few ways to think about how to get help, right? So if you want to learn more about any of the things we talk about tonight, so these are all, we talked about all the advanced research strategies that are out there and a few miscellaneous ones that we didn't even cover. So if you want to learn more about any of this, we have additional counseling webinars, and then we have the Mysteries of the Library series and a whole bunch of how-to guides. So where do you find that information on the website? So on the homepage, on our top navigation menu is where you'll find that information. So under Get Help is where you will find all of our upcoming and recorded webinars. So if you click on recorded webinars and go to webinars by topic, webinars by topic, you'll see the intro webinar for counseling is here. And our how-to guides are all under library skills guides. So if you want to learn more about the information that we began with, you can go to the database search skills and it outlines it in much more depth there. Now, where can you go in the library to ask questions? Well, there's a few different places. You can, if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, we like you guys, but not enough to work at 1 o'clock in the morning for you. So in that case, you can go to Search Everything, and we have a frequently asked questions database that you can use. So if you want to know more about DOIs, which is a topic we didn't even cover tonight, you can search DOI, and looking in this middle column for quick answers, you'll see that what is a DOI, how do I cite an article without a DOI, and then you'll see information and short instructions on how to do that. You can also ask questions through our Ask a Librarian service. So there's kind of a few different tiers of that. You can email us by filling out this form, and we typically get back to you the same day. You can chat with us. So for instance, we're open to chat tonight until 9:30. So I'm sure my colleagues are going to love it if you get right off of the webinar and go start asking them questions. Tell them Andrea sent you. And they're going to just love me in the morning, I'm sure. You can leave us a voicemail, but we are only going to return your message by email because it's just too difficult to actually get a hold of a student by the time we get to your email. Because we staff Ask a Librarian 7 days a week, but at different times. So there might be a pretty big gap of when we hear your voicemail, maybe by a few hours. And then there's doctoral research appointments. So if you're a doctoral student, you can select the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences and Counseling, and you can make an appointment with me where we'll talk for 30 minutes about your specific research. So you simply pick a day and a time that works, and you fill out this form, and then we can talk and work specifically with your research topic. So that's available for our doctoral research students. So again, that's all under our Ask a Librarian button at the top of all of our web pages. So thank you, everyone. I know we did go over a few minutes. So thank you for attending. I will be hosting other webinars throughout the year, so please look in your courses for announcements, check in with your instructors, reach out to us at Ask a Librarian or look at those recorded webinars. And hopefully we'll see you at some of the mysteries the third Monday of every month. And I am going to stop the recording here and stay a little bit longer to answer questions. So thank you everyone for attending.